Hi, everybody, and welcome to Thoughts on Thursdays. And we'll be here for about 30 minutes, sharing different ideas around a variety of topics. And before we get started on today's topic that I got from Mary, any thoughts from last week's topic that anyone wants to share? Last week we talked about just how we were all kind of interconnected, the interconnected ability of all of us. Yeah.
Including animals, right? Didn't we talk about that as well, which I a lot.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chels.
Okay. Uh, funny, funny you saying that, Julie. You're just right in my wavelength. But um, I I've been talking with Mary and Barbara kind of about, being able to communicate with animals, plants, other beings, that kind of stuff. But I kind of lately have just been feel like I'm on the vibe of just communicating with plants and not animals. But this morning, I was walking one of my dogs that I walk on Thursday, and um, we were walking slow because he was kind of taking his right paw a little gentle, like maybe he overdid it in his, leg somehow. And he was kind of limping a little bit, but I thought we'd make it to the corner and back. But he stopped and he said to me, "I'm done." And the part about the story that seems unique to me and I wanted to share was, how when you're facilitating reconnective healing, or you're just in what, kind of that zone where you're just more at peace and more in love, and you just feel like the veil of everything is, you're just a little more closer to source. The funny thing about communicating with the dog was also that feeling of, all of a sudden I was there. I was transported to where there was more peace, more love. And that was what was striking about it. Of course, I've gotten to the point where I wasn't surprised the dog had communicated with me, but I was surprised at where it brought me on on a on a level of peace and love, very similar to like when you're facilitating reconnective healing, or just in that, like, dipping your toe in something bigger. And that was surprising. And I was hoping Cecilia would be here today because I've heard a lot of stories about animal communication with her. And my question for her would have been, along with that, does it does your set point of stress and just physical anxiety, does that all kind of melt away along with when you're communicating and you're closer? And maybe it has something to do with joining in with their atmosphere, which maybe is a little more at peace and not so cloudy of, so that was my share.
Well,
um,
That's, go ahead,
Go
Jules.
ahead, Julie.
now you brought up something for me, that it came to me because this morning when I walked Jessie, my big dog, my big girl, she's very, even though I put a thing on her nose, a gentle leader so she won't pull, she still pulls. And my back was killing me this morning, really bad, worse than usual. And we got out in on the road, and she was not pulling me. She was walking slower, and I said, "Wow, Jessie, I mean, like, so did she feel that I was anxious or tense about the pain that I was feeling?" So, that's something whether or not it made me feel more relaxed. It was hard to be relaxed because I was in pain, but I was happy that I felt that she was that in tune to me. I was hoping that was it, and and it made it a lot nicer, made it easier for me to walk her. So yes, thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah, yeah, that's great, Jules. And you're right. I think that there is that connection and I think that I see Chelsea walked away. When we get to that space of openness, I think that a lot of the extraneous emotions float away.
Mm.
But Doreen, go ahead.
Yeah, I love this. It actually takes me back to our conversation about the vulnerability and the innocence. And I think that you need to be vulnerable and innocent to receive something from quote unquote another, whether it's an animal or a human. And specifically just receiving it in its purest form. Um, I would say, Chelsea, yes, it puts you right in that, you know, being a catalyst space for truth.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, welcome, Cecilia and Gino. And we're just kind of, before we even introduce today's topic, which is kind of related to last week's, but we're just doing a follow-up to see if anyone had any thoughts from last week. And Chelsea and Julie both shared a little bit of kind of connection with their animals with us. And I had kind of an interesting thing happen too that I wanted to share with you guys. And it also speaks to that whole connection thing. Oh, hi, Billy. Welcome. And I was up in Seattle a couple weekends ago. And while I was up there with some friends, we went to a Native American Cultural Center. It was a beautiful place. And their gallery was closed because they were putting in a new show. But I went to or we all went into the gift shop, which of course had lots of goodies. And I was looking around and I came across this dream catcher.
Hmm.
And I don't know if everybody knows what a dream catcher is. I imagine most of you do. Anka, are you familiar with what a dream catcher is? Okay. So this dream catcher was very unusual. It wasn't your typical circle with some mesh and feathers. It had that, but it also had a lot of stones and they were intricately woven and connected. Yes, there you go. Right. And this
Oh,
one it was actually one of the most stunning dream catchers I've ever seen. And it had stonework and beads in it. And it was just incredible. And I was looking at it and admiring it. And suddenly I heard it started calling the name of a young girl who is very close to my heart, who has Native American blood. And it was like saying her name over and over again. And I'm like, oh my. Because it was kind of expensive and it was very sophisticated, and she's only 3 years old. So it's like, this is just too much for her. So I walked away and went to the other side of the shop and was looking at some more stuff. And it was like this voice was like following me. I mean, it wasn't really a voice, but it was kind of like a voice. I mean, it was this message and it kept like urgently saying her name. And it's like I knew I couldn't escape it. So I just decided, okay, fine. She's meant to have this. I'm just gonna break down and buy it for her, and which I did. I got home and told my husband about it, and he kind of raised his eyebrows. And um, so then I wrote a little card and kind of shared with her the experience of how it came to be with me, and then I was sending it on to her. And I wrapped it up and took it to the post office. And, there's lots of ways to send stuff, and you can pay a lot of money and get it there very quickly, or you can pay a little bit of money and get it there like next week. And that's how I chose to send it. It's like no rush. They don't even know it's coming. So, it doesn't matter how quickly it gets there. So I sent it off and then kind of forgot about it. And, I figured I'd hear from them next week or so. 2 days later, I get a phone call from her mom. It had arrived. And she's like, oh my gosh, the timing of this is just so perfect because she's just started having some bad dreams lately. It's like, oh, wow, okay, well, that's kind of what it's all about. And then she said, and I just love this. She said, I read your card. I really loved it. And after I read it to her, I said, maybe this is our ancestors letting us know that you need a little help. And I just thought that was such a beautiful way to share that with her and just kind of normalize it and let her know that she's supported from all sides. And yeah, it was just so cool. So, anyway, getting back to how everything is so connected. So, just wanted to share that. And does anybody else have anything they'd like to share around that? Katina, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
I think it was Beethoven who wrote about, he discovered that his green beans and vegetables grew better if he played music, and he began to play music in his garden
Oh.
for his vegetables. There you go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And I've heard that, like, if people listen to classical music, especially people like with Alzheimer's or some kind of dementia, it really helps calm them down, that connection. So
Right.
that's cool. Yeah. It's very observant for him to notice that. Yeah. So, well, okay. So, oh, Doreen, go ahead.
Yeah, Barbara, I love that. That's so cool. And what it just, I think the message that came through for me listening to your story is the question is, whose dream are you catching? Is it yours or is it somebody else's? So yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's a good dream. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know, but I did reach out to them a couple of days later, and I said, how's it doing? Is she sleeping better? And they said, yeah, she is. So, yeah, but I don't know. That's a good question to explore. So,
I really love that story, and I'm into following my intuition because sometimes it makes absolutely no sense and all of that. So and I just love everything about that, and I hope that this little girl can keep the essence of everything that's behind that. As she gets older, and kids are going to say, "Oh, you can't hear voices," or this or that, and they're going to squash her. And I hope that that whole family just keeps up with what you just did.
yeah, I agree, and I think that the way her mom presented it, just as such a normal thing, I thought that was just such a great way to introduce and just kind of let her know that this doesn't have to be so unnatural. This is just part of it. And
Do you have Native American blood?
I don't know, but she does.
Okay. There's another museum, the Luluska Foundation. Are you familiar with that?
Up in like outside of Vancouver,
It's
Washington.
aerial. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I
Yeah,
don't think they're open every day, but I just went there just a few weeks ago.
nice, nice. Moving right along, since Mary hasn't joined us yet, but I'll just share what her thoughts were for the talk today. And again, they kind of dovetail into what we were just talking about. And she thought exploring our ideas about higher power, source, all that is, God, the force, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, to me, that is, what we were all just talking about while we've been on here is, if you want to call it higher power or source or, just being connected with all that is. That's what it's really all about. But anyone else have any thoughts on that or any shares they want to talk about?
Yes, always so much, right? For me, dreams fall right into this. So I think talking about the dreams is like such a great segue to the whole subject of source or whatever you want to call it. And recently for me, I call it imagination and creativity, which um, is all there is. And so if I ask the question, well, whose dream are you receiving? Well, whose reality are you receiving? Whose thoughts are you receiving? Um, yeah, I'll take a dream catcher that can guarantee me I'm only receiving my own dreams. Because for me, and I probably a lot of other people, I've spent quite a long time working my way back from receiving somebody else's dream for me, which was very uncomfortable. So, and it was, just terror and fear and very control based. So I have an aversion to any of that kind of stuff. So I love imagination. And right now, Dr. Eric Pearl said something years ago, and it was the reason that car is in your driveway that's yours is because you perceived it. And for me, I would almost substitute the word imagined. You imagined it. And your imagination lined up with other people who imagined that same kind of car even before you did. Your imagination went, hell yes. And the universe said yes. And so that car is now in your driveway and it's yours.
Ah, that's beautiful. Yes, thanks. That's a good share. I like that. Thanks, Duran. And Renee, go ahead. And then Jules.
Okay, I like to see things now from a perspective that is beyond my ability to imagine. I have experienced many times when things happen that I never ever could have imagined they would unfold the way they did. And basically, it didn't really have a whole lot to do with me at all. It was more about being at the right place at the right time, and the right people happened to open doors that I had no clue could ever even open for me, to me. And in that respect, I'm sort of divided because there is the model which says, oh, I have this whatever in my imagination and I want to manifest it. I want to attract it. I want to make it happen. Only, by concentrating and focusing on my desire for that. And to me, that's the old model. For me, that's the way that, we've been given that as a way of approaching things, but somehow the other way, which is completely open-ended and, as I said, not in my control. And just to give you an example, the apartment I currently live in came after my previous one was flooded. And I was without a home to live in for a number of weeks. And some of my furniture was stored in the place where I currently am. And I was dropping by to grab some more clothing because I was living in a number of places. And there was a woman inside this apartment, and I didn't know her, I'd never met her. And I said, oh, I didn't realize anyone was in here. And she said, oh, I'm the owner. I don't live in Toronto. I live out of town. I'm never really in Toronto. I'm here with the painter because we're renovating. Okay. So we had sort of a brief meeting and she took my phone number. And as it turned out, I called her maybe a week or two later and I said, I'm interested in the apartment because I already lived in the building that I'm in. I didn't really want to leave the building. And there, out of nowhere, she showed up on that day at that moment in time when I just happened to open the door to go get some clothing when she never lives anywhere near here. And it was just because synchronistically, there she was planted for me to meet her. And then when I called her to say I'm interested in renting this place, she said, it's yours, as if it was meant to be mine. And okay, there was a lot of other things in between the leaving the other one behind and walking toward what was new. But I guess my point is that sometimes it's better to hands off. Like what I was doing was running around like a crazy person trying to look here, there, and everywhere to find an alternative. Did I want to stay here? Did I want to go somewhere else? I didn't know. No one gave me an invitation to say, oh, you're going to have a flood on Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock. You know, you're invited, So I had to figure out what was the priority, but it seemed that it was already figured out by a higher intelligence that orchestrated the entire process. And interestingly, I lived actually beside this unit. So I didn't have to go pack all of my life and box it all. I just had to carry it to the next door, which when you think of it is a pretty damn well considered opportunity and alternative, and forever grateful. I have wonderful landlords. So, all was in my favor. I didn't have to
I really didn't have to rush about and try and figure it out or think I had to figure it all out. It was already being revealed to me at every moment that I took the next step. So
Yeah,
that's all.
that's awesome, Renee. And I love how you explain that. And to me, that seems like more not necessarily intention, but your vibration. Your vibration was lined up with whatever happened, and it attracted that to you. So that's kind of because yeah. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Julie, I know you had your hand up, so go ahead. And you got on mute.
I have to go. Okay. I,
Okay, thanks. See you
okay.
next time.
Bye.
Thanks.
Well, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. But pretty much it was when I try to explore the idea of source or God or however you think about it, um, or higher power. To me, for me, I think about, okay, all of that is in reconnective healing. Because when I tap into that, when I bring my attention there, it's like what Jillian will say, everything else dissolves, and so in a way, and this is a new thought, is I kind of think of my higher power as my vibration, my vibration, uh, my source. And when Doreen was talking about dreams, um, it reminded me of something that Solomon said. Solomon speaks about when you go to sleep, say, um, what is it he said? That you ask to, like, sometimes I'll say, when I go to sleep, what do I need to know? That's not what he said, but he said, tell me something good is going to happen uh, in when I'm sleeping, you know. And lately, I feel like my dreams are just like I don't like them because there's a quality to them that are just, I don't know, I can't explain it, that don't make me feel good. And so I've been asking for better dreams, and I have to remember before I go to bed to just ask. I mean, because really, when you do that, and also that it's the resistance that I have, that I want to let go of the resistance, and that's when you can allow things to come to you, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
So
get a dream catcher.
I have one. I have one somewhere, but the one you got, man, that was a great story.
Oh, thanks.
Thank
Thanks. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Resistance has a lot to do with all that. So, yeah, just being gentle with yourself and just,
you. Yep.
gently letting it go.
Yeah.
Okay, Durin, and then we've got you, Cecilia. Thanks, Jules.
Sure. I'm trying to mute.
Oh, so um, I take the word and the concept of imagination with me into the new realm, into the new way of doing things. And I think it's interesting every time I bring up the word imagination, there's a lot of resistance with some people. And I will go back to Renee's story was so beautiful. And even the story about like the car that ends up in your driveway, it's exactly the same because I didn't dream up that car. I had no idea that car even existed. All I knew was I needed a new car. And I went online and there it was. It had already manifested. I didn't imagine it. I would never have been able to imagine a car like that. That said, I don't even like cars. I don't like motors with vehicles. So this is probably not the best analogy for me to use. But it still works, you know. It's still a representation uh, of how it works. Everything's beyond what we can think. And for me, the word imagination takes you beyond what you could ever think was possible.
Thanks for explaining that. Yeah, so it almost seems like our manifestation of whatever is almost like what you're using is what you're creating is that what you I mean, is that kind of what you're how you're using that?
I see. For me, I'm really comfortable with the words creating and creator and creation and imagination,
Yeah.
because that's natural for me, and I understand it's not natural for everybody. Um, so I think Barbara Dance, I guess, yeah, if we're going to talk about manifestation, then maybe that's a different thing. I wanted to use it as an example of perception and what happens in that world of perceiving stuff that you didn't even know was going on. But then when it happens, you look back and go, right, of course this. Of course I live here. Of course I got this place to live. Of course this is the vehicle that I have. Of course this is the relationship. No shit. But something else was handling it. It was just being handled, you know? I was a very tiny little speck in that, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what Renee was saying also. It's just, it's just all, yeah, all the interconnectedness of all of it. It's great. Go ahead, Cecilia.
Hi, you guys are amazing. I love y'all. Um, and I wanted to remind everybody that each of you, each of us, we are the creator. We are all of it. We designed everything that's in our lives right now. We did. We don't remember that. We were designed not to remember that. So we can live the goals that we set up for ourselves. I'm going back to way long ago at the beginning of this. I believe I mentioned a book called Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. And it's in his trilogy of Conversations with God in each of the books, but then he put it into a children's book, this one concept, that we are all perfect. We're all in the light, in the sun, and oh, look at the sun. We are all in the light, and when we chose to come here, the story goes, there's a conversation about, I want to know myself as compassion and forgiveness. And then the God says, but you are already perfect and you already know that. It goes, but I want to remember that I know that. And so one little soul in the sun also says, well, I want to be part of that. I will help you, but you have to remember that I'm going to play the part so well. I'm going to give you something to forgive. I'm going to give you an experience so you can recognize yourself as forgiveness. And so if you don't forgive, then I will never remember that I chose to do this for you until we come back. And so it reminded me of a story I heard recently, because there was a woman talking about experiencing her life and about the hardships that she had, in this mother that was so distant from her, that was so angry and made her feel unloved and never demonstrated love. And then her mother passed away and she had to grow up and live and survive with this memory of her mom. And then she had a dream and her mom was there. And in the dream, her mom was sitting there and she goes, you have grown so much. And she said, she just looked at her mom and her mom says, it was so hard for me to be so mean to you, but that's what you wanted. And that's why I was that way. So you could learn what you know now. And that was like, wow. And that was just so huge, because learning it from that perspective, remembering it from that perspective is like, I asked you to be that way so I could learn and grow in this and know it. It's like, wow, that's amazing. That's why forgive, 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 because we put them there. We asked them to do that so we could grow from it. Yes. I just wanted to share that with y'all because we created this and you gave yourself that hurdle to jump. So jump it or go under it or go around it or do whatever you want to do with it. But don't judge it. You put it there so you could learn something. That's what I want to say. Love y'all.
Yeah.
Julia, I'm totally going to interrupt because that is very true. And that's exactly what I found for my family. And I love them so much, even though I don't need to be around them, because they have prepared me exactly for this moment on this planet. And like I'm brilliant, absolutely brilliant for having done that and for having found the people that could help me through that because I couldn't really see it. And there's even more people helping me through that. So yeah, it's amazing perspective when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great way to look at so much that's going on, like on the world stage right now, too. And I found that that's just a helpful perspective. So,
Mhm.
yeah. I know Abraham Hicks is always good at saying, I created that. And no matter what the situation is, I
Right.
created that. So, yeah, it's a nice thing to carry. Oh, well, we're kind of running out of time. Anyone have any last thoughts they'd like to share?
I kind of do,
Okay,
Barbara.
good.
I'm with you because I see the I created that clearly. But I do want to say something on behalf of people who maybe aren't quite there yet. And I do believe this as well. Everyone needs to take responsibility for their behavior, actions, thoughts, whatever. I don't want I created that to be a way of dismissing responsibility. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, yes. And I agree with you. And I also am very careful not to feel like blaming the victim type situation because just because I created that doesn't mean that I have to wallow in it.
Mm.
And a lot of people don't, a lot of people just don't understand that. And so I think that, I spend a lot of time helping others and volunteering and stuff. So it's not like, oh, I know what I'm doing, so I don't have to deal with any of that other stuff out there. I just sit here and I think that having that grace for others who maybe don't totally understand that is important. So yeah, I hear you, Durin. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. This was a great conversation. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.